Thank you all for joining us today. You are at I feel like we're on an airplane, right? They tell you where you're going, so you make sure you're on the right plane. You are on the CSforAll Technical Support and Grant Overview webinar. Anna.
Yes, welcome. I'm Anna Suarez, and I'm the CEO of Trivium Consulting. We are doing this technical assistance in a partnership with STARS Alliance and support from the National Science Foundation.
Next slide, please. Just a quick introduction of the folks who are here today. You just heard from Anna Suarez. Anna is the president and owner of Trivium Consulting. Before this work, she was the associate VP at the implementation group, where she provided strategic grant services to STEM organizations. And prior to that, she was a program director at NSF. I'm Elizabeth Tobias. I'm a senior grant writer and lead project manager at Trivium Consulting. And also in the background today with us today are Angie Prindle, who will be running our Q&A board. She's a senior project manager at Trivium, and Hannah Schwartz, who is making everything work properly for us today. Thank goodness. Thank you so much, Hannah. Just to let you know about how things will work today. Again, this is the last time I'll say it, but we do have a recording in progress, and we'll be sharing out that recording after the meeting, and it will be available on the resource page for CSforAll support at Trivium's website. There is not a chat function during this webinar, but if you have questions, please use the Q&A board, and Angie will be curating that in order for us to have a Q&A at the end. Fantastic. Now I'd like to turn it over to Anna for our next slide to discuss our goal for this project in general and this webinar specifically.
Right, so the goal for the CSforAll technical assistance is to support as many competitive proposals for the small and medium CSforAll RPP projects. So that's what we're here to do. So hopefully you're looking to submit a small or medium CSforAll.
Great. Next slide, please. So our agenda for today, in order to support that goal, is to go over the CSforAll solicitation itself. We have a wide range of experience in the room today, so we'll take a little bit of time to make sure that we're all up to speed on what the solicitation is and some of the basic information about submitting to the NSF. And then these next three agenda items, we're going to kind of cover simultaneously at the second half of our webinar. We'll be describing the supports that we're supplying in detail, and you will have an exit survey that we're going to give you access to in real time during our webinar today, and hopefully it will be helpful that you can fill it out while we're going over the supports so that we can move to our next step next week and moving forward, which is to really curate and organize these supports in a way that serves all of our participants and accomplishes our goal. Great, next slide, please. Just a quick overview of dates and deadlines. So we'll be working on the survey today in the webinar, but the deadline to turn it in is end of business on Monday of next week. And that'll give us time to call that data and really, again, do mindful and thoughtful application of applying the supports that will best serve each of our participants. The deadline for this year's CSforAll, as you guys all know, I hope, is June 4th, 2024. And that is 5 p.m. submitters local time. So whichever is the lead applicant organization doing the submitting, their time zone is the one that's in play. But of course, nobody would wait till the last minute anyway. Of course, your submission deadline is the 2nd or the 3rd if the actual submission deadline is the 4th. Great, next slide, please. A quick coverage of eligibility, because the language changed a little bit in this solicitation release. The only folks who are eligible to be the lead applicants on this CSforAll are IHEs, so Institutes of Higher Learning, that can be 2-year or 4-year, non-academic nonprofits, or tribal governments. The The local government, state government, which would apply to sort of school districts or schools, you certainly can and should be on board as a partner and therefore a subrecipient, but they are not eligible to be the lead applicants. Next slide, please. So a little background information about CS4All in general. I always think it's great whenever you're seeking funding to understand and consider the intention of the funding organization. I use this as a strategy with clients, regardless of whether they're going after public or private sources, because every funding agency has a why. Guiding principles that it's easy to overlook or forget once you're deep in the myopia of your specific project or proposal. So I just want to see where CS4All lives within the NSF. CS4All exists within the Directorate for Computer and Information Science and Engineering, or CISE. And CISE has a goal of advancing research, innovation, and education in CS, IS, and computer engineering fields. So in addition, broadening participation, equitable access, and inclusivity are core values, not only of the NSF in general, but of this directorate specifically. So CS4All lives within that directorate, and its goal is to provide all US students with the opportunity to participate in computer science, so CS, and or computational thinking, or CT. So what does this mean for an applicant? It means that in addition to all other decisions that you need to be making, we recommend an ongoing gut check. And for this solicitation specifically, really broadening participation is something you need to center and place as a core value and keep checking back in that that's part of the work that you're doing. Next slide, please. So how is CS4All organized? The CS4All is organized specifically into strands and size classes. I know we have different types of folks in the room. Some folks have already managed a CS4All project. Others are looking to resubmit a proposal that wasn't initially funded. Others haven't submitted to this solicitation at all. So it's worth taking a moment to identify how it's organized, because not all NSF solicitations have the same structure. So the 4 strands, each strand has a different focus or objective, and we're going to go over those more specifically in the following slides, but they are the pre-K through 8 strand, the high school strand, the pre-K, it's pre-K through 12 pathways, but we like to say pre-K through 14 pathways because inherent in those goals is a pathway forward beyond high school. And then, of course, the research strand. And it's worth noting that the first 3 strands of CS4All require RPPs, which we're going to unpack a little bit later in another slide if RPP isn't something that you're familiar with. The 4th strand, the research strand, does not require an RPP. Now, the funding levels and project timelines for this solicitation are organized into what's called proposal class sizes, the small, medium, and large. And again, we will go more detail into that a little bit later. For the first 3 strands, so for the RPP specific strands, pre-K through 8, high school, and the pathways strand, any of these 3 strands can be at a small, medium, or large class size, if that makes sense. The research strand has its own proposal size, and there's only one of them. Through our NSF supplement, Trivium will be providing support to those participants who are seeking a small or medium proposal class size in the pre-K through 8, high school, or pathways strands. So small to medium sized proposals in the RPP specific strands. That's what we're able to provide support for. Folks who are seeking the large RPP or in a research strand, there's lots of resources available to you out there, and we encourage you to find them. There are some that are going to be listed throughout this webinar. We just won't be able to provide the technical support through this supplement on those types of projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so the strands specifically. We're going to go through each one of these strands as each has a unique focus, and it's not just based on the student age, but also the types of activities that will make a competitive proposal in that strand. But before we go digging into them individually, I just want to say one thing, which is that CS4Alls happen in the classroom. These are specifically activities that impact formal or in-school learning environment. I know some of you have experience with other solicitations through the NSF that are in or out of school or focus specifically on out of school. This is specifically in school. If you have a project that it focuses on out of school or informal learning, then you're probably better off looking at a different solicitation than CS4All. So let's start with the pre-K through 8 strand. The pre-K through 8 strand is focused on designing, developing, and piloting instructional materials that integrate computer science, CS, or computational thinking, CT, into pre-K through 8 classrooms. Activities that might fall under this are things like development and study of a prototype instructional materials, teaching and testing of CS or CT concepts with other content, development of tools and models to support underrepresented students, the creation of developmentally appropriate learning progressions, the design of classroom-based assessments, the development of PD or other teacher supports. The strand is definitely focused on instruction and instructional materials, but a competitive proposal needs to be innovative in its approach, materials, or outcomes. You need to be ready to show clearly that your curricula or your materials don't currently exist, or that your innovation is a valuable adaptation to serve an underrepresented group. The high school strand. So the high school strand, interestingly enough, is focused on preparing and supporting teachers to teach rigorous CS courses. It specifically seeks to address the critical shortage of teachers in the field. And so a competitive proposal is going to tackle key elements of teacher preparation. They could include things like recruitment, or with an eye, of course, to underrepresented groups, because we know that representation matters. Things that offer a variety of access points, PDs that offer a variety of access points, like online or hybrid, PDs that address the diverse backgrounds or experiences that potential teachers might bring. Or perhaps there's an adaptation or a scaling of an existing PD to increase the impact or broaden participation. PD should be robust and effective and could lead to certification and pre-service pathways. High school strand can also address studies that inform state or local policy on CS requirements, or designing, piloting, and assessing scalable mechanisms for the ongoing support of classroom teachers. Now, it's true that this strand is very focused on teacher PD and teacher support, but there is a possibility to have a successful or competitive high school strand RPP that is focused on enhancing instructional materials. For this type of activity, there is some specific callouts in the solicitation to look at supports that have already been developed, like ECS, Exploring Computer Science, or the AP Computer Science courses and exams, or Bootstrap, which integrates mathematics and CS together. It also calls out the potential for modules in AI, machine learning, and data science, and ways to integrate these into existing CS courses. So next strand, the pathways strand. This is focused on designing pathways that support school districts in developing policies for incorporating CS and CT across all grades and transition into 2-year or 4-year institutions or the workforce. That's why we like to put the 14 at it, and we talk about it as a pathway, right? So all of this work with the pre-K through 8 or with the high school, making sure that there's good instructional materials, making sure that the teachers are supported. The pathway strand looks at the ecosystem of education, right? How do we make sure, or how do we see that the districts are providing those policies and supports so that kids can matriculate through move into pathways in higher education and on into the workforce. Activities can include course sequencing and alignments, articulation from pre-K through 12 to 2-year or 4-year, or district or state systems to assess and track student progress. And finally, the research strand. So the research strand seeks to support the development of evidence-based knowledge that illuminates how the teaching and learning of computing best occurs and how it can be supported most effectively for diverse students. Because this strand is not part of our particular project support, I'm not going to go as deeply into it. There's ample information out in the field, and if this is a strand you're seeking to submit on, I'd encourage you to seek out that information, look up other projects that have already been successfully funded through this strand, and maybe reach out to those PIs and get their insight or advice. Before we move off of these specifics, I just want to say again, any competitive CS4All proposal, regardless of the strand, regardless of the class size, it has to mindfully and thoughtfully address underrepresentation in the field. Without this centering of the concept and intention, a proposal will likely not be competitive, as it doesn't align with the core goals of the NSF and the directorate, the size directorate. And in fact, I'll say when we get to the merit review criteria, there's some solicitation-specific review criteria for CS4All that reinforces the fact that this broadening participation, BPC, has to be central. It can't be an afterthought. Okay, next slide. So now we're just going to go over the proposal class sizes. Any of the RPP strands, right? So that's the pre-K through 8, the high school, or the pathways strands. Any of those can be submitted at any of the proposal class sizes, small, medium, or large. And just a reminder that we're able to provide technical support for RPP strands that are submitting at the small or medium level. So what does each level entail? Smalls have a cap of $300,000 and 3 years, and the NSF expects to award 12 to 13 of these. So it's really clear from the limited budget that this is designed to support first steps. These are planning grants. They can include establishing partnerships, exploratory research, or pilot implementations. It's funding to start to build a strong and well-integrated research practitioner partnership, and one that might be well-suited to compete for a medium or large proposal in the future. Building an RPP takes time and effort, and the small strand provides resources to support that time and effort, and these are important seed grants. And they have potential for long-term impact, and that's the reason why they're the focus of our supports. So the medium RPP has a cap of 1 million and 3 years. And the NSF expects to award 6 of these. Obviously, the expectation of how many awards is just an expectation that is in direct relation to how many competitive proposals that they get. Mediums are designed to support promising approaches and feasibility studies by a well-defined RPP team. So you can see the scaffolding built into the sizes of the awards. They want to see a well-defined RPP team that is ready to go to the next level. And this could certainly be the next steps after a successful small. So if we have anybody in the room who has a successful small and is looking to move to a medium, this is part of the supports that we're able to provide. Larges have a cap of $2 million and 4 years. The NSF expects to award just 3 of these, and they're designed to support scaling, and significant scaling is what they're looking for, of an evidence-based approach or implementation studies by an established RPP team with demonstrated sustainability. And then, as mentioned before, there's the research strand, which has its own single funding class size. It's a cap of $750,000 and 3 years, and they expect to award 4 to 5 of these. Great, next slide. So what is an RPP? Again, we have a diverse group of folks in here. Some folks have been experienced with an RPP before and some folks haven't. So I just wanted to take a moment to delve into it as it's a different approach. And it is an approach that in many ways was pioneered by the CS4All solicitation. So research practitioner partnerships acknowledge the fact that all of the innovative and brilliant research in the world can't truly impact students and learners if the folks in the room with them on a daily basis aren't integrated into the process as full partners from the get-go. Their insight, their knowledge, their unique expertise and experiences, those are equally valued with the expertise, insight, knowledge, and experience of researchers. And RPP brings together communities of thought and practice who historically they've been siloed from one another. And that may have been to the detriment of impactful and sustainable implementation of education innovations. So a true RPP, a successful RPP, cannot pay lip service to the partnership part of it. All of the folks at the table have to value each other's perspective and experience, and working together, they have the ability to create research and refine innovative approaches that are really sustainable and can make a broad impact. So there are 3 circles in this RPP image because it's not just research and practitioners, it's also community that may have a valuable voice at the table as you put together your partnership, depending on what your project is. Community members or other stakeholders might involve community leaders, they might involve industry leaders, employers, obviously folks in government, in addition to your boots on the ground practitioners at the school. Those are classroom teachers, administrators, and counselors, and of course, our researchers. Together, they form an RPP. Next slide. So on the next slide, I just wanted to provide some resources. Most of these are pulled directly from the solicitation, so those links are in there, but I did want to start at the top with CSforAll, CSforAll.org, which is an excellent resource for anyone who's seeking to create or follow through on a CS4All proposal. Their webpage is just chock full of great resources, and I encourage you to investigate it. And then there are these other fantastic resources that are all linked in the solicitation, and actually when we share out this webinar, you'll have access to those links as well. Great, next slide. So most everybody in this room has applied for an NSF grant before, so I just will touch quickly on the merit review criteria. You all know that the NSF does not provide you a rubric that says, 25 points for X and 30 points for Y. The review criteria are both of these, and they are both fully considered while your proposal is reviewed. Intellectual merit, the simplest way to express it is, how is your project going to advance the field? Build knowledge specifically, in this case, in CS or CT education. Broader impact means, how can your project benefit society? So we can certainly look at this through the lens of the larger context of workforce development. We can look at through the lens of broadening participation, but taking a step back and looking broadly, how does your project have the possibility of impacting society or benefiting society? Great, next slide. So as promised, I would cover this particular solicitation. CS4All has additional solicitation-specific review criteria beyond the merit review criteria. And I just want to say before I start, and I'll say it again at the end, like literally in bold in the solicitation is the statement that proposals that do not adequately address these additional criteria will be declined. They are very clear about how central this criteria is to a competitive proposal. So these are, does the proposal identify the characteristics and needs of the intended population to be served? And does the proposal include specific plans or strategies for addressing or accommodating the particular needs of participants of the intended population? And I would encourage you, as you're gut checking throughout your process, are you fulfilling these criteria, to also make sure that you're taking an asset-based approach, not just a deficit-based approach in broadening participation. What assets does your particular group bring to the table, the underrepresented group that you're supporting, that are currently not at the table because they're underrepresented? So what do we gain from bringing more folks to the table as a society and as an education ecosystem? Not just what are we offering to those groups through our wonderful projects. Great, next slide. A quick one, I think everybody knows this, but just in case, we have a diverse group, so I didn't want to skip this completely. In order to submit to the NSF, first off, your organization needs to be on sam.gov. This is sort of the clearinghouse for anybody who gets paid by the federal government, and everyone has to be on there. If you're not on there yet, please start now. It takes time. And then for the submission itself, you can submit through research.gov or grants.gov. Whichever one you already have a registration for is fine. If you have neither yet, we recommend starting with research.gov. I spent the first 2 decades of my career almost only on grants.gov, but I will say now that I'm in, my third act, research.gov is a little bit easier to navigate and more friendly. So if you have a choice, go there. Great, next slide. Okay, so what to submit? This is a simple checklist of the components of a CSforAll application. Almost all of these are pretty normal for NSF. There's any NSF proposal. There's one that's specific to this. The cover sheet is a form that they provide. The project summary is a 1-page of the project. The project description, which is your narrative, it's 15 pages, and there's some defined sections and requirements. NSF uses references cited rather than bibliography. But again, I don't think we would have any NSF newbies in the room. And then the FEOR, which is, of course, your facilities, equipment, and other resources. That's a document where you share what your institution is bringing to the table in support of the project. And if you have sub-awardees, they need to add to the FEOR as well. A data management plan. How will you be managing the data that you're collecting? And if applicable, a postdoctoral or graduate mentoring plan. This is new. It used to be just postdoctoral. This is a change, I think, just this past year, that if you have postdocs or graduate students as part of your plan or part of your project, you need to include a description of how you're supporting their education goals. Budget and budget justification. The budget is a form that you fill in online, and the budget justification is the narrative of that. Again, if you have a sub-awardee, they need their own budget and budget justification. Letters of collaboration, just an FYI or a reminder, if you already know this, letters of support are not allowable. It's just the letters of collaboration. And then bio sketches. If you are not aware of Science CV yet, the way that bio sketches are happening has changed. It's been almost a year now, so probably most folks know, but just in case you haven't, you have to go in and do it through Science CV. It's actually, once it's done, it's really great. It's just the first time it's a little jarring because it's different than it's been before. And then the current and pending support is also created through Science CV. Another change, synergistic activities. If you have folks on your team who have synergistic activities, and a lot of times, especially in an RPP, that can be really important because their expertise and work history is a little different, and synergistic activities is really where you show that they have a valuable place at the table, but they're no longer part of the bio sketches. Now they are an attachment through the supplemental documents. Collaborators and collaborators and other affiliations is a document, and the description lives in the PAPPG. And then specific to CSforAll is the list of project personnel, and the solicitation describes exactly how they want this document. So I said PAPPG, most of you probably know that phrase, but I'm just going to say the layout, specifications, requirements, everything is covered in the PAPPG, or the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedure Guide, the NSF's grant writing handbook. And this is specifically if you're going through research.gov. It's over 200 pages. It gets updated and changed every year. I just went to a 90-minute webinar on it recently. It's your friend, but it's a big, heavy friend, but it's a very important friend. And the wonderful thing is it's completely searchable. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to switch gears. We finished covering the solicitation itself. We're going to go into what supports Trivium is providing. But before we do, if you are able, we'd love to have you scan this QR code so that you can fill out the exit survey in real time. Our exit survey is how we're collecting data that I can utilize to really effectively and efficiently provide all of the participants with what they need. So if you're able to do that right now, great. If not, if either you're calling in from your car or listening while you're doing other things, or maybe you have to consult with other members of your team, then don't worry about it. We'll be sending the link later, and the deadline for this isn't until Monday of next week. But we're going to take a pause for folks who may want to take a moment to open up their survey and just see if there are any solicitation-specific questions in the Q&A that want covering. So Angie, if you want to share with us any questions.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I encourage people to ask questions. And Elizabeth, I wanted to share our Q&A is appearing blank for me. So would ask if what you see in
Great. I see a lot of questions. I see 12 or 13 questions. You know what I'm going to do, Angie? I'm going to make you the host, and maybe that will allow you to do that.
Great.
Hold on just a second, because it doesn't really help if you can't. Yeah, because then it disappeared from mine. So now you have it. Okay, great. So then since, Angie, you haven't had access to the Q&A up until this point, so you're just reading stuff for the first time, I'm going to have us barrel forward instead of taking a pause here and give you time to do that, that curation of the questions. So we're going to go over the specific supports that we're providing through this supplement, and hopefully that'll give you guys some ability to answer some of the questions in the survey or just gather your thoughts for when you do. Next slide, please. Great. I'm going to hand it over to Anna because you guys have listened to my voice for long enough.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. So again, we're super excited to be working with you on a submissions for CSforAll. And we just wanted to go over the supports that we are providing. First is ideation and planning. Under ideation, what we do with groups that we work with, we help create a logic model. We help define the theory of change, help you with the rationale of the project, and make sure that the ideas that you're putting forth are aligned with the solicitation. So there's a lot of different supports that we will provide here, just under ideation and planning. And we may do this depending on what the surveys that you're filling out now, hopefully, give us. We will look at providing support both through webinars and one-on-one support. Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to add something here.
No, I think that's perfect. Yeah, and just so that you guys know too, as we discover what you need, if there are supports that are needed across many folks that aren't, individual, and we do provide them through an additional webinar, as we move forward, we'll be editing clips of those and loading them up onto the web page so that they'll become resources as you move through this process and processes in the future that you can utilize.
So as we work again with organizations on developing proposals to NSF and other agencies, we find that networking is a big part of the proposals development. Like sometimes groups need help identifying a research partner. As Elizabeth said during the presentation, we really do look at helping you bring in folks that, well, first we start with your own network. And if you're not successful there, we look at bringing in folks that are currently NSF funded, specifically through the solicitation that we're targeting, because those folks then have the background and the track record with NSF in this case, and with the specific program. So for the networking pieces, we're looking at research partners. We help find practitioners, partners that you may need, external evaluators, and advisory board members. So we really work with you to bring together a really strong team so that your proposal is really competitive. Next slide. Or I'm sorry, Elizabeth, do you want to add anything?
No, that's great. Next slide.
So resubmission, we work with PIs and their teams. It's always a really depressing thing to get a decline from an agency. But what we first do is we take your panel comments and individual reviewers, and we put the information into positive, negative comments, and neutral. Then we group them by, if it's research oriented, is it the team oriented concerns that were raised, whatever those are. And then we bring it back and discuss it with the PI and the team. How will you address these concerns? Which ones do you think are really applicable? Sometimes we disagree with what the panel is saying, so you can ignore those. And so then we look at how you're planning to address these concerns. At that point, it may be worth it to talk to a PO and share how you're planning to address it. But in any case, with the resubmission, we do that positive, negative, and neutral, and then we prioritize what will be addressed. Anything with that, Elizabeth?
No.
And then the project description, we will, with the narrative in the project, we will help you, we'll provide feedback. We will help edit what you're pulling together. Again, we're looking to tailor the supports to your needs, and this is what we've seen in the years that we've been doing this with other groups. Elizabeth, anything else?
I don't think so, other than that it's important to say out loud that, I mean, I don't think anyone's assuming this, but we're not able to provide supports that we're writing your proposal for you or with you. We are able to provide supports where we're honing your proposal, where we're editing it, where we're guiding it, where we're building connections, but the narrative itself lives and breathes in your hands. And we have great writers who can help you with editing and feedback. I just kind of wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about the feedback is that we will be looking the whole time at how responsive each section is to the RFP. And then budget, so with the budget, we can help with pulling together some of your budget justification, your budgets, looking at numbers, making sure that it all gels with the narrative, because all those pieces, as you all know, have to work well together. So that's another piece where we can help you.
And I would just say all three of these, different from the last slide, all three of these are going to require one-on-one. Right? There's not going to be a group situation where we're going to all go over your panel comments together. So
right.
These are really tailored one-on-one, where our goal is to attach you with an expert who can give you the support with any of these three items that you need. Great, next slide. And now the supplementary documents. We can help support you with this as well. Different folks have different challenges with this aspect of things. It depends a lot of times on your institution, if it has an SPO or not, and also how engaged that SPO is, right? How much support are you getting from your institution on these supplementary documents? And I've seen everything, a range from the PI doesn't do any of this to the PI does everything. So we're able to help with that, to give strategies, to help point you in the direction of successful templates. And specifically, I would say Science CV, again, if you or your team have not gone through it before, Angie, whose face you saw for a brief moment, is our is our Science CV expert at this point. And once you go through it once or twice, it becomes second nature. But the first couple times, it can be a little jarring. So we're happy to help support you through that. And if we have anybody who is really at their institution is at the beginning of this process and needs to start right at ground zero with, we got to get on sam.gov, or we've got to get on research.gov, or we've been on grants.gov, but it's time to move over, we can help with that as well. And again, there are questions in the survey, which I understand from Angie, some folks are having trouble scanning the QR code. We're going to try and see if we can open up the chat just long enough to put that link in there so that you can access it that way. But if that doesn't happen right now in real time, don't worry about it, because at the end of this, everybody who registered is going to get a direct link to that survey. Great, next slide. Here we are, Q&A. Angie, come on back.
Well, hello. Great to see you. Going through some of this, kind of looking from the beginning, and going through time to now, someone was wondering if the solicitation, if this would include the research strand.
The solicitation includes the research strand, but our support does not. Our support is for the RPP strands at the medium and small level only. But if you've got a great idea for a research strand, go for it. And as I said in the presentation, I would encourage you to, all NSF awards they're public. So look up others that have been funded, and maybe seek out those PIs and ask for their input. It's a community of, designed to build knowledge. So I would encourage you to reach out to that community. Anna, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, a lot of PIs are willing to share their copies of their proposals. So as Elizabeth is saying, reaching out to them, especially if the idea is similar to yours, is a good idea. And also you can, even have them maybe as on your advisory board, or a co-PI. So that again strengthens your project going in.
Great, next question.
Yes. All right. Somebody was curious about the distinction between the medium and large awards, and if you could shed a little bit of light on clarifying the case for, what the guidelines are for each.
Anna, do you want to grab that one?
Sure. So the small RPPs are literally like a planning grant. It's really to bring together your team and plan what an execution of a CSforAll would be. What are the activities that you would implement more broadly and so on. So that is really what it's a very contained project. It's really to give you money and time to figure out what you're going to do in a medium proposal. Would you add anything to that, Elizabeth?
No, that was the small proposal, right?
Yeah, but
And then the medium proposal is Now you're going to do
Right,
it.
right.
Right?
So
Now you're going to do it for the first time. You've taken that time. Now maybe you're someone who you feel really strongly that you can give strong evidence that your RPP is already established enough that you're ready to jump right to a medium. But you're going to need to really be able to support that, right? That because research practitioner partnerships don't necessarily just happen, right? So that's the difference, right? Is a medium, you already have the RPP in place and you're ready to start doing the stuff. And then the large, Anna, do you want to talk about that?
the large is really if you already have a very established program with good data and you want to replicate that. I think that, that is really looking for a much larger scale implementation. So NSF is, that's why there's less money allocated to those. They're only looking to fund a very few of those.
Yeah, scalable, scaling, significant scaling,
Yeah.
significant. Okay, great. Next question.
Can a county office of education submit a proposal?
Not as a lead applicant, and that's the change. They used to be a maybe, right? And in many other solicitations, they still define eligibility as definitely eligible and may be eligible. Here's what I will say, even though they used to, there's other solicitations that define it that way, they really have to make the case, and there are very specific ways to make those cases. It was a county office of education, correct? Is that come in find yourself a research partner and have them be the lead applicant and you be the sub-recipient. And if you don't have that, if you have a great idea for a proposal, but you're like, I don't know where to find that partner, come to us. That's what we're here for. We can help you network and find that partner.
Right. I would add to what Elizabeth said that CSforAll.org, which is an alliance, a group that is funded as we had put up there in the deck. They're a great resource. I would also look at NSF's website, as Elizabeth has encouraged, and look at currently funded projects in your state an area if you're looking for researchers. And of course, we're here to help you. And so we could also help identify a really good research partner.
And I would just say again, because my background is less in research and more in practitioner land, right? And so I understand the question from a practitioner-based organization, but that's why I really love that image that my colleague Ken created that shows the Venn diagram. Everyone has to be equally at the table. And we know, those of us who have spent a lot of our time in the practitioner end of the things, it's hard to look at things through that lens of research. Sometimes researchers really bring that expertise to the table in the same way that practitioners bring their lens of expertise to the table. So let us help you network and find a good partner for you. And it just means you have to come in as a subawardee, right? The money can be allocated however, you just have to come in as a subawardee. Next question.
Yeah, a question on PK to 14 pathways. Wondering if a project that centers out of school supports for students and teachers, if that might be a good fit for the solicitation with implications on the district processes and policies involved.
I don't think so because again, CSforAll, as Elizabeth said, is very school-based focused. I think that if you have the pathway descriptor with formal and informal, that would work, but it can't just be an informal pathway. I don't think that that's what NSF with this particular solicitation is looking for. If you're looking at informal, you may want to look at the ASIL solicitation AISL, because they focus on informal education.
But I would also say what Anna said in there is really important. If you're right, because the pathways is about articulations all the way through. And if you're including in your justification and your investigation that it's important to have both kind of supports all the way through, then great. Then I don't think it knocks you out. But the focus of this solicitation is on formal, and therefore you need to really spend most of your effort and energy on those articulations, right? How do we do the foundational work in pre-K through 8? How do we do the more rigorous work in K through 12? I mean, in 9 through 12, and how do we get them into pathways that are easy for them to navigate for 2-year, 4-year, and workforce?
But with our support, we'd be happy to help you look through or look at the currently awarded projects through CS4All and see if there are any that have informal and formal education in the pathways.
Next question.
Yeah, there's a question about wondering if it might be harder to get the grant if you don't have a PI from an EPSCoR state. Is that the case? Do you have any insights on that?
It's not more difficult to get the grant if you're not coming in from EPSCoR. NSF is looking always, as our other agencies, excuse me, to broaden the geographical reach throughout the nation. So EPSCoR states tend not to come in as many proposals to NSF. But no, I mean, NSF is looking to fund good proposals that are competitive, including those from EPSCoR states.
Great. Let's see. Some questions about, the definition of coming in with a large proposal, and if that automatically signifies something with national impact, and how someone might know that they can be eligible for writing that kind of proposal.
I think that, yes, the large scale is really looking for national impact. That national impact could be that you have had incredible success and great data, and you want to scale that, and you can make that argument that your model, what you've implemented, how you've implemented it, has been really successful, and therefore you want to replicate it in different, maybe with rural or different populations. So that would be a competitive proposal to that level. But again, it's up to you. You need to make that argument to the reviewers, etc.
And I always like, I'm a directions follower. So I always like to go back to the solicitation. And the quote from the solicitation is that it's evidence-based approach and evidence-based approach and implementation studies by an established RPP team with demonstrated sustainability. So not just established, because they say that in the medium, but established with demonstrated sustainability. So you need to really be, I think that's the other part of it, aside from national impact, you need to be really able to show and demonstrate that your team is in it for the long haul, right? Is sustainable.
There's a question about an approach to budgeting and really getting understanding about how that looks. If there's guidelines, for folks to be able to get a big picture, or in how to think about that, or resources that you would recommend.
Well, the resource for budgeting is the PAPPG, right? I mean, they go into detail about what's allowable and what is, and also there are the OMB, right? There's what's allowable, what isn't allowable. Uh, it's a lot of information. And so if you're going for a smaller medium and your question is about budget, please, for goodness sake, let us support you. Because we have, and it's not even me, it's not me, it's not even Anna, like we have some budget experts who are just fantastic, who can really help you to identify and strategize what's the best place to put your dollars, especially if you're looking at a small, those aren't a lot of dollars, right? So where do you put them that makes it strategic and keeps it competitive? And then how do you align your budget justification so that you're saying things in a way that continues to build your competitive proposal? But as far as just like, I need to go and look up stuff for myself, the PAPPG has a lot of detailed information about which costs are allowable and which aren't, and where you should center them in the budget.
So we're down to 1 minute. Do we have
Oh,
more?
are we? Oh my goodness.
There are more questions.
Okay, just quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pick one that is very might apply to more people. Can two RPPs across two different states combine their programs and apply as a single grant?
Ooh.
I'm sorry, I think we actually have 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just looked,
sorry,
it goes to
I just,
11:15.
yes.
I'm sorry, 11:15
Oh,
my
good.
time. Everybody's in different time zones. So
Yes, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Yes. Can two different RPPs across two states combine their programs and apply as a single grant? Apply together.
Yes, I don't see why not. And I assume that you're talking at that medium level.
Yeah.
I think, yes, I think that would be a competitive proposal.
Great. Another question is about researchers. How does the solicitation define researchers? Are there any listed qualifications in terms of degree attainment or institutional affiliations associated with that?
not in the solicitation. No, there isn't a specific definition of what you have to be in order to be a researcher. And actually, I will say in general, to be the lead PI on a project, there are no specific qualifications. That being said, your background and expertise is really important, especially of the lead PI on your project. Anna, did you want to add to that? I see you unmuted.
Oh, sorry. I didn't, were you done, Elizabeth?
Yeah, no, that's good. I was formulating a thought, but maybe it's one that you're already formulating.
Well, I was just going to say again, coming back to your team and the expertise, the researcher is a key team member for the RPP. So having a strong track record, both in the field, in publications, and also just in possibly at NSF already, will make your team stronger. So I would try to recruit someone that has a track record with NSF.
Is community partnership essential for this kind of solicitation?
It's not required, but it is mentioned a couple of different times in the solicitation. So I also think it depends on what your project is and the community that you're serving, right? So there are some areas where you're going in and trying to come up with an innovation or an approach within the classroom, but maybe it's a super rural area or a culturally specific area where because hopefully you or someone else on your team is engaged in that community, that if you don't have certain community leaders at the table, it doesn't have legs, right? So I think that the answer to that changes on where are your participants and what are your goals and objectives with your particular project.
I would like to go back real quick to the last question that I answered about the researchers with the small RPPs. if you do not have a track record and you're a researcher currently with NSF, that is a nice entry point. So for the medium ones, I really think that a track record, both in the field and or with NSF, really strengthens your team and your proposal. But that entry level RPP, the small one, if you do not have, if you're establishing yourself and so forth, in both the field and or NSF, that's a nice level to come in at.
I love that. That's great. Thank you, Anna, for clarifying that, because that's a really and it's valuable to these federal funding agencies to be expanding the, I mean, they're trying to expand participation as well in research. So this is a great opportunity for that. That's a great answer. Thank you.
There's a question about anticipation of, will there be the same, do you anticipate the same number of awards at each level for the February 12th deadline? Or will there be the recent NSF budget cuts affect the next round?
Well, the truth is we don't know how the NSF budget cuts are going to be honest with you, how they're going to affect each program, right? They're trying to figure out, I'm sure, how they're going to meet their budget cuts. And that's NSF wide. So, yeah, there's just no way to know. Again, the numbers that NSF puts in any solicitation as their target, they're their target numbers. And if they get more proposals that are more competitive on one level, they may fund, like in this case, they may fund many more small proposals or many more medium proposals, depending on their competitiveness. But that's a good question, and I wish we knew how it was going to impact the solicitation in particular. All we can do is put in the best proposal possible, the most competitive, and we're here to help you do that.
Some questions on timing around planning to put proposals together. How much time should we plan on for getting support and feedback on the project description?
How much time should we say that a question again?
Yeah, how much time should we plan on for getting support and feedback on the project description?
Okay.
How long would that take?
It depends on what specifically your project narrative, what state it's in or what you're looking for. But it can be a couple of hours. It can be multiple hours, right? It just depends on what the status is and also what you're asking for, right? So if what you're looking for is support and feedback and editing on a narrative, right, on a project description, we would start by attaching you to a grant writing expert and have you share that with them and have them read it, and then the two of you have a meeting with what your objectives are, right? So that do you want us just to do a pure edit? Do you want our feedback and have a conversation? Do you want us to point you in different directions? And then we will give you that support. So it can be a vast answer, whether it's just an hour or two or giving you a nice tight edit. That's my favorite thing to do. I love it. Or if it's someone who's going like, hey, for this to be competitive, you might want to relook at this section in the middle because it veers off course a little bit, or there's ways to align it better.
That's great.
Yeah, I would add to that again, the helping you ideate the ideas and so on is a good place for us to start if you have questions about your project idea, the design. And in terms of everything that Elizabeth said is applicable, the sooner also that you come to us, the better it is, because we can help you more. And again, the overall goal of the technical assistance that we're providing is to help develop and submit competitive proposals. So the earliest you connect with us, and hopefully we'll have your surveys by Monday so that we can start coordinating, the better off we are in supporting you.
And it's also completely all right if you want to have multiple touch points, right? So if you're like, great, can we ideate? And then we're going to go away for a little while and work as a team. And then we're going to send it back and we'd like your edit feedback review. Or if you're already, some of you may already be at a draft point because the solicitation was so delayed. I know there are folks who were just writing anyway. They're like, we think it's going to be what it was, so we're just going to write. So maybe you already have a draft and you're ready to have us review it right away. We can start at any point in the process. It doesn't always have to be linear like that.
Few questions about high school. So here's a rather specific one from someone who works in integrating CT and science using an unplugged approach. They've piloted it in high school biology with great results, and they want to continue this work and build on that pilot. So the question is, it seems like CT integration is only a focus in the middle school strand. Is that correct? Is that interpretation correct, that this person's work would not be aligned with the solicitation with the high school strand?
The high school strand is really, so NSF previously funded the development of different curricula and so forth. I mean, and it's not that the like as Elizabeth shared earlier, the ECS is an example, Bootstrap is an example, the APCSP are all examples of the curriculums that were funded. They're also looking for, curriculum with good data that would be implemented, with AI implementation. But they're looking really for PD at the high school level. They're not looking at all for the development of curriculum and modules and things like that at the high school level.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
while you were just saying that, I looked back at the solicitation again. So not only is the curriculum an afterthought, it's a paragraph after, like, well, you could, but in that paragraph after, it really states fairly clearly that they're looking for expansion of existing programs, right? And they call out those programs. They do not, and they take the time to call out AI and machine learning and data learning, but they don't call out CT. So if you've got a viable CT curriculum that you are looking to scale, there might be a better solicitation for that.
Yeah, I would say that probably the DRK
I was about
12
to say that, yeah.
would be a better solicitation than the CSforAll for the high school strand. Again, for the K-8, because NSF didn't support curriculum development at that level, there is you can put in to develop modules and materials to integrate a CS into K-8.
And definitely look at the DRK-12 I don't know enough about your project to know if it's aligned, but that's where I was thinking it might live too. So if both brains sort of lifted that, then take a look at it. All right, now
Another
we really
question.
do have only 3 minutes left.
Right.
Now it's for real. So last question.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. How about one more on the high school strand? Do we need to follow this into classrooms and schools during the implementation?
Well, I would say that, again, we're supporting the small RPPs and the medium. So the small RPP is really kind of just a planning grant, and you can pilot a few things, but there's not that much money. So that's really, you don't want to be overly ambitious in what you're proposing. The medium one, yes, you will be working. You'll be working specifically with
Somebody's if you can all just double check that you're muted.
Yeah, not everyone is muted. The medium level one is one where, you have an RPP established and you are implementing in the schools, a CS program, an intervention. So that is an expectation.
But I would
Elizabeth?
also say that the high school strand is so heavily focused on teacher recruitment and teacher PD, right? So again, anything that has to do with implementation in the classroom, in the solicitation, it's an afterthought paragraph. If what you're really doing is trying to support teachers, provide them with professional development, that ticks off one of those or multiple, hopefully, of those defined boxes, or certifications, right? Recruiting opportunities to recruit new and different teachers. That doesn't need to be shown that you're applying it in the classroom, because it's not about that, right? It's about the teachers' development themselves. All right, that is our last minute. Angie, can you make me host again, just to make sure?
Oh,
I don't know
yes.
what will happen at the end, so I'd like to
Yes.
say that. So again, I just want to, can we go to the next slide, please? Did we lose Hannah? There she is. Oh no, we went too far. There we go. Okay, so just a reminder to complete your survey by April 8th. There is this QR code one more time if you want to try and scan it, or I will follow up with the actual link so you can link to it through an email. And what's going to happen next for us is once we gather all that data and organize it, we're going to start reaching out to folks to connect you with supports and schedule times. So I just want to thank you all again for being here. Oh, Angie, you have something to
Can
say?
we make these slides available? That was another question that a few people
Oh yeah,
had.
the whole webinar is going to be on, and the slide deck will be on our website. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. That'll be, oh, hi, Alan, you're just came on camera. The whole webinar will be loaded onto our webpage, as well as the slide deck itself. So you guys will be able to access that in case you want to click on any of the links or whatever.
And that's Trivium Consulting, right?
Yeah, and I'll be sending the link directly to the CS4All page in the email. Great, thank you all so
Elizabeth,
much. Yeah.
I did have one quick question. So the time frame for us reaching out to folks is likely to be what? Once the surveys are submitted.
Once the surveys are turned in, I'm not promising anything before April 12th because I'm assuming that there's going to be some hitches in that giddy up, but hopefully faster than that.
Okay, so look for our emails around that time.
Great. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.